Oops, hang on, let me get back where I wanted to be. Here we go. So welcome everyone. It is really good to be with you this afternoon. Some of you were with me last week when I did an overview session of RAS Plus and tried to highlight some of those key ELL resources as well. Today our focus is vocabulary A to Z. And just as you're getting comfortable, you don't have to share in the chat, but think about any questions that you have about vocabulary A to Z, jot them down somewhere where you can refer to them, and I'll check in with you at the end of the session. I'm also wondering if anybody has started to use vocabulary A to Z, or if it's completely brand new for everyone. So if you have started to use the program, just find the chat box and give me a thumbs up or a yes. If you haven't, leave it blank and then I will know. That will help guide me through the rest of the session. I'm Paula. I live in Minneapolis. My background is as a classroom teacher at the elementary level. So I worked with almost all grade levels as a general ed teacher in a district with a very large population of English language learners. And I also spent 4 years as a literacy coach before moving into the world of professional development. So today I'm just here to support you. I appreciate the comments. Some of you have used the resources before. They have been continually updated. And so there may be some new features for those of you who use vocabulary A to Z in the past. A couple housekeeping things or items. I will send an email to Kirsten in about a day. It'll have the link to this recording. It will have a certificate of attendance if you need that for continuing ed units, and a link to a short survey to give me feedback about your session. And then questions, type them in the chat. We have a really small group. It's fine if you unmute and ask. And then the best way to view this is if you're on your laptop or computer, have 2 tabs open so you can go back and forth, one between the webinar and one so you can be in your RAS Plus / vocabulary A to Z account. That way you can go back and forth. I'm going to build in at least a couple times for you to work within your own account. If you received the product orientation guide, it's great for note taking. If you don't have it, any paper is just fine. And once we go live, I'll show you where to find some really helpful getting started videos. They're short, they're to the point, and they're really good for reviewing or for learning new information. Our goals are 3 for this session. We'll explore custom lesson options, and those would be lessons that you're able to create to target the work, the skills, etc. your students are working on. We'll make sure you know how to create assignments and how to view those assignments once they've been created, and we'll take a peek at some of the student reports that are available with vocabulary A to Z. Now we're going live. If you have your login information, just log into your account right now. You can type in vocabularyatoz.com, or you can even go to RAS Plus and then just find the tab that says vocabulary A to Z. Now I did provide some training accounts for anybody on the call who currently does not have their own login. So that way everyone can play around in the account today and see what it's like. So if you do not have login credentials, choose one of these accounts below. You would still go to vocabulary-a-z.com, click the member login. The training account usernames are on the left. Training 14, 15, 18, or 20, and the corresponding password on the right. and you would log in. I'll give this, keep this screen up for a minute. If you do need to write one of these down, do it quick. And then make sure you can log in to either your account or a training account. And if I just went too fast, somebody tell me to go back because I'm ready. I'm in my account and I do want to show you because you have more than one program. If you're in RAS Plus and that is clicked when you log in, you'll see a Raspberry navigation bar. You just would scroll over till you see vocabulary A to Z, and that's another way to get into your account. And you know you're in vocabulary when you see the purple navigation bar. And the two areas we're going to look at today, well, three areas actually. We'll look at all the different ways that you can either create a lesson or use a lesson that is already pre-made. And in Manage Students, we'll take a peek at reports. At the very bottom of the page, if you would just scroll down with me, you'll see an area that says instructional support. And this is the area, this is the bottom of every landing page. You'll see information when they talk about tiers. They're not talking about response to intervention. They're talking about vocabulary words that are tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. This is where all of those getting started videos are. A little bit of information about the student portal. And under instructional tools, you may want to come back here to review. It walks through how to make assignments, how to manage your lessons, and how to preview all of the interactive games that are part of Vocabulary A to Z. I'm going to just click on that. There are approximately 40 interactive games or interactivities, and these accompany all the lists that either you create or are created for you. And you can search by interactivities that focus only on phonics, or only on spelling, or only on vocabulary. And about 40 total interactivities or practice. They're not used for teaching purposes, they're used for practice and reinforcement. And if you're assigning these for the first time, you may want to take a peek at these and just preview any of the games that you are interested in assigning to your students. And that was at the very bottom of the page in
Hey everyone, sorry for the disruption. It looks like maybe Paula tried to hop off and she'll be hopping back on, hopefully. Let's stick around for a couple more and make sure.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know what happened. My internet went out. It is kind of stormy where I'm living today. And I was going to try to figure out what was going on. So give me a second to share my screen again. And hopefully we can get everything back working. All right. Well, thank you for your patience. Not really sure what happened. So our first goal, and I think I'm going to turn my camera off also, just so there's no more lag or drag on my internet. We're going to be looking at creating custom lessons. We'll let you know how to do that. And then you'll have an assignment where you're going to create a new category of lists that you'd want to add. So let me get right into the website. Again, it looks like, there we go. Under custom lessons, first we'll click on my lessons. And I can see that currently I don't have any that are not in a category. I have created categories previously for all of my lessons. So I have a folder that's language arts, math, Raz Plus books, science, social studies. So what I want you to do, your assignment, is first to just for about a minute or two, think of some categories that you would want to have. Maybe one that says vocabulary, maybe one, I have one for spelling. And so we're just going to take a minute or so to add a couple categories right to your vocabulary A to Z account. Or if you're using a training account, just feel free to add categories to that. And we'll just take a minute or so you know how to do that. If I wanted to add a category, even if there's no resources in it yet, I could add a vocabulary or I could add something perhaps that just says animals or plants. And I can just add that, and now that category should be there. So there it is, there's animals. And if I wanted later to move that, I can move that into science. So take about 1 minute to be able to do that. All right, and let me know if you've got questions along the way. I'll make sure that I watch for those. Once you've created that category or categories, you always have some options. So one option up in the corner where it says action, you could rename that if you didn't like that category, or you could delete it if you find that you have several ways that you can create a new lesson. You would click on new lesson and you would first name that lesson. So if I wanted to do a vocabulary lesson and I called it November vocabulary, right now they're saying, where would you like to save it? So it currently would not be in a category, but I could save it in social studies. I could save it under vocabulary. I could decide. And then they give you some options. And I think I would probably want to save this maybe under vocabulary. And they say you have to first enter the words. So I'm going to enter just 5 words. and I'm going to call one Thanksgiving. I'm going to say thankful. Yeah, you can tell I've got food on the mind, pie, pumpkin, or pumpkin. All of the words have to be separated with a comma. And let's do one more. Let's say football. And that would be how you create a word list. You're not limited. You can have as many as 30 words on a list, but of course, the longer the list, the longer the list. And so we kind of say rule of thumb, 15 words at a maximum, but of course you're working with high schoolers and middle schoolers as well. So you might want a longer list. Once I've created my list, I hit go, and I can look at the words that I've selected, and it will give me a definition. And if I want that word, I click on the plus. It has now been added to my list of words. Thankful, yes, I'd like that. Pie, I would like that. Sometimes they will tell you there are multiple meanings. Pumpkin, yes. Football, select from multiple meanings, and they'll give me several definitions. So football, the game, or football, the ball. And I'm going to just say football, the game. And now I have my 5 words for that list. If I am ready with that, and many of those come with picture vocabulary cards, not all, but many. And that's really helpful with all of your students. I can save the lesson if it's just the way I want it. And I say save. And next we'll look at what we need to do to look at the print resources as well as digital. So I'm going to come back into the presentation for a minute. And here would be your assignment. You created a couple categories. Now create a new lesson with 5 words and add it to that new category. Once your lesson is open, you're able to share with your colleagues. And I want you to think about how sharing will be beneficial. I'm going to come back into mine and then just show you what I would do. There's the 3 little dots that say action. I can edit. I can come back into my lessons and look at my vocabulary category. Here it is. And then if I want, I can share. And when you share, you're sharing a complete category or folder with all lessons in, and you're sharing with everyone that has your same or under your same license. So if you are sharing with a grade level colleague or another ELL teacher, you're able to do that. As soon as I say share, right next to my vocabulary category or folder, we see the icon for people, and that indicates that I have shared that folder with my colleagues. And then how you find your shared lessons, you go to shared lessons. Now in this case, I have many that have been shared with me, but I would go to Learning A to Z. Here is, that colleague didn't have anything. Enrique had a lesson, and I could use the lessons that he has shared. So that is how the share feature works. And please let me know. I'll be watching. If you have questions, we'll take about 5 minutes for you to create a lesson with 5 words and then see how you would categorize that lesson and how you would share with your colleagues. And then I will stop the recording for the next 5 minutes. So you're able to search from words that are already there. So wordless, many, special lists, Dolch words, Fry words, high frequency words for your early readers, Marzano words. So I would even say to you, before you start creating from scratch, you might want to see what's already been created. And if you are looking at a list that's already been created and you wanted to use something from the economy for your older students, you would see the list. There are the vocabulary words divided by tiers. Basic words, frequently used, and specialized words. And you would add these to your list in the same way, just by clicking the plus sign. So that is definitely a shortcut to creating brand new lists every time. And that would be under new lessons, and you'd go to word lists. And then these are words that you have saved from the past. So let's take a peek at how we would assign one of our lists to a group of students. So I'm going to my list. I'm going to find one that I just did. I'll look at the one for November vocabulary, click on that. And now I'm going to see my words on the right. Here's my actions. I can edit, add more words. I can move this to another folder. I can copy it again and do some changes. This is where you'll find all of your printable resources, and you have options. So you would always click on options. And the only difference between the primary format and the intermediate is basically the size of the font. And so you would either choose, I'd like a primary view or an intermediate view. You check the resources that you want. Any of the worksheets, this is a word list. These are all downloadable, printable. There is an assessment if you would want, and picture vocabulary cards. So you get to decide which resources you want and which additional activities. Now, these are all print. So printable resource options. And then whatever you choose, you would save those. You can preview these before you decide, well, which ones do I want to save or print? Well, 25 pages is quite a lot. So you may want to save the vocabulary list, the teaching plan, some of the graphic organizers, but your choice. Which of these would you want to see? I typically preview and then decide which to download. Now I'm able to assign this digitally. And when you see a digital assignment, was there I'm going to mute everybody for a minute. All right. So the assignment types, there are 3 when you're making a digital assignment. Sequenced, and here's the little question mark, will tell you what to do. Always 4 games, 1 at a time. They complete each game and then a quiz, and that completes the assignment. That is not typically the one I choose. Student selection, students choose from any game within the assignment type. So any spelling, vocabulary, or phonics game, all they have to do is complete 1 game, and then they have a quiz and they're done. So the one I prefer is the one called intervention. And it's really more about teacher choice and differentiation. You're able to save this as a preset, meaning you always want these games and these quizzes when you're making a vocabulary or spelling assignment. You don't have to choose that. Now, because this was vocabulary, I'm only going to choose some vocabulary activities. So I may do a practice vocabulary test to see where my students are at, matching sentences, maybe sentence writing practice for my older students, a memory match, and last, a vocabulary test, so a final test. I don't want to overwhelm my students, so I usually just choose about 3 to 5 activities, and then choose your students. Now I can choose all my students. I could choose just my ELL grade 1 group, and it would be assigned to those students. You can choose to assign to everyone. You choose a start date. I'm choosing today, and I'm going to give my students, let's say, about a week to work on this. You can choose the voice, basically American, or I think it's British, and assign. And I have successfully assigned 4 games and a quiz to 4 students. I can also preview what it will look like when they log in. And what they'll see is their first activity is in color. They cannot move to the next activities until they complete the previous ones. They're able to listen.
Thanksgiving, pie, football.
So the words are read to them. And the reason you would want to preview the interactivities is so you choose the ones you think would be just right for your students. Before we move into reports, I want to have you take a peek at pre-made lessons. And then I'll give you some time to explore. These are lessons that have already been created. And there are lessons for every single Reading A to Z level book. There are lessons that have been created for the Learning A to Z math books, for fiction and nonfiction, including the vocabulary books. And if you were to choose one of those, and you would say, I'm looking at just the vocabulary books and maybe at the grocery store, it will take me right here into a pre-made list. I can edit this. I don't have to keep all the words that are there. I can, again, download and preview the print resources and assign the digital. And then they're going to show me additional books that would also have to do with vocabulary. And that, again, if I wanted to copy and customize, this is a ready-made list, but maybe I don't want all those words there, and I can just eliminate and have a shorter list and save that lesson. And that lesson right now is in uncategorized. So I'll go to my lessons. There it is at the grocery store. And now if I want, I can move that to a category. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. We don't have a lot of time, so maybe 3 minutes to look at some of the pre-made lessons. Number 1, we looked at how to create those assignments, the print options, the 3 assignment types. Jot a note to yourself that if you choose intervention, that gives you the most ability to differentiate for your students. Make sure that you know how to create a digital assignment. And in the next 3 minutes, explore some of the pre-made lessons. And then we'll come back together and I'll show you where to find those reports. That's where we'll end our session today. All right, welcome back. I know not a lot of time to explore, but definitely wanted you to know the difference between your lessons you create will be in custom lessons, Any of the pre-made lessons for any of our leveled books or content readers are there. And anytime you create a new lesson from scratch, it'll be right on the far left. As we wrap up, we only have a couple minutes. I do want to show you where you would find your reports. You would go to Manage Students and Reports. Click on the Reports tab, and then what you're going to want to see, you'll filter by product. So in this case, we're looking at vocabulary A to Z. I might want to be looking at all students or one or two. You can search by today if you're looking at today's work, or last 30 days, the last week. Because I have many in a demo account, I'm looking at just all the data I might have. And if I look at Emily, who is looking at vocabulary, I have a chance when I dig into her account to be looking at her quizzes and what were the scores she received, so I can see the words she was correct or incorrect. You're also able to print that if you wanted. When they complete an interactivity, it only says interactivity so that the interactivity has been done. In this case, it's a quiz. They're going to tell me what she missed, so I can click on the results and then dig in a little bit further. I can look at, so that was student activity. I can look at skills. And again, I can look only at vocabulary A to Z. I can look at skills, and I can see where my student or students were having any difficulty at all. Green typically is go, they scored 80% or higher. And yellow, kind of that caution, take another peek. Red would be an area where Emily would be showing some difficulty. So that is a way to drill down a little bit further. You can go into assignments to see what assignments have been made. And now if I wanted to look at more than just Emily, I could be looking at all students or a group of students. But that's where you're going to find your data. And what will be populated is the data based on the quizzes that your students are taking in vocabulary A to Z. Now we are at the end of our time. So as we wrap up, we have looked at goal 2. We've looked at goal 3, how to find a student activity report or a skills report or assignment. And as you were briefly looking, think about which report might be the most beneficial, which have you used, and which might be new for you. And this is a way to filter all reports. You can do the same when you're looking at RAS Plus. Our goals were to know how to create a custom lesson, how to manage assignments, and how to find student reports. So please look at the note that you jotted down at the beginning of our session today. And hopefully your questions have been answered or your understanding has been deepened. I appreciate your flexibility today when the internet went out at my house and changed locations, and thanks for hanging in there. I am going to put a link. Let me just back up. You can either scan this, or I put a link in the chat to a short survey about today's session. If you have a chance to do that now, that's great. It will take a couple minutes, but because of time, if you don't, I will send the link to Kirsten when I send a follow-up within a day or so, typically by tomorrow. And I want to thank you again for your time today. And know that after a long day of work, I really appreciate your spending the last 45 minutes with me. This is the mission statement of Learning A to Z, our company. Our company thanks you. I thank you for your time today. And when you receive this, make note of the customer support phone number and email, and they are fabulous about getting back to people. And I am happy to remain on if there's any additional questions. And this will end, though, our formal part of the presentation. And once again, thank you so much for your flexibility and for hanging in there.